I'm Megan. Sitting on my deck, watching the sunset paint the Pacific in hues of orange and pink, I'm reminded of the storm that once threatened to shatter my sanctuary. It all started with a simple text message that turned my world upside down. I was in the middle of a high-stakes client meeting in San Francisco when my phone buzzed. Glancing at it during a break, I saw a text from my sister, Lily. Sold your beach shack for $200,000. You need the money. I stared at the message, reading it over and over again, as if the words would change. Before I could respond, my mom, Carol, chimed in on the family group chat. Good decision. It's falling apart anyway. Maybe now you can afford a real place. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, a dozen angry responses coming to mind. But instead, I typed, okay. It was 2:47 p.m. At 3:03 p.m. My property manager, Ava, called. Miss Thompson, we have a serious situation. I just received a call from a title company about a pending sale of the Malibu property. They're requesting documentation for a $200,000 transaction scheduled to close next week. My blood went cold. What transaction? I demanded. Apparently, someone claiming to be me had entered into a purchase agreement with a buyer. They'd provided identification and were moving forward with the sale. The title company called Ava because they couldn't verify ownership, my LLC structure had flagged in their system. According to the title company, a woman named Lily Thompson presented herself as my representative with power of attorney. She claimed I was overseas and unable to handle the transaction myself. Ava, I need you to do something for me immediately. Contact the title company. Inform them that any sale documentation is fraudulent. The property is not for sale and I have authorized no representatives. Then call our real estate attorney. This is attempted theft. I hung up and called Lily. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright. Megan, did you get my message? I know it seems fast, but my husband, Tom, has a friend who's a real estate agent. When I told him about your place, he said he had a buyer immediately. Cash offer, quick close. I figured you'd be relieved. How did you access the property? I asked calmly. I still have the key you gave me years ago. Remember when you first bought it and wanted someone to check on it while you were working those crazy hours? I did remember, but I'd completely forgotten about that key. Walk me through this, I said. You took a buyer through my house? Well, yeah. Tom's friend brought his client last week. I met them there, showed them around. Megan, I have to be honest, the place is worse than I remembered. Nothing's been updated. Still has all that old-fashioned furniture and those outdated light fixtures, but the buyer loves the location and plans to tear it down and build new. He was willing to pay $200,000 for the tear-down value and land. What made you think you could sell my property? I asked. Oh, come on. I helped you. You've been struggling with this place for years. The property taxes alone must be killing you. I figured I'd spare you the embarrassment of having to list it and admit you couldn't afford it anymore. Did you sign any documents? I inquired. Just the purchase agreement. Tom's friend walked me through it. We need your signature on the final paperwork by Friday. I told them you'd be grateful. Lily, I need to be very clear. You don't have the authority to sell my property. Megan, don't be stubborn. $200,000 is good money for that place. Take it and buy yourself a nice condo somewhere, something you can actually afford to maintain. What did you tell the buyer about the property condition? I pressed. The truth that it's a 1960s fixer-upper that hasn't been touched in decades. Original everything, all outdated, needs complete renovation or tear down. The buyer's excited about the lot value. And what did you sign as? I asked. Your representative. Tom's friend said it was fine as long as we had your approval, which obviously you're giving now. I'm not giving approval, I said firmly. There was a moment of silence on the other end. What? I'm not approving this sale. In fact, I'm informing you that you've just committed several felonies, fraud, forgery, and attempted theft. She laughed. That dump is not worth $5. $8 million. Are you insane? The property was appraised at $5. $8 million 14 months ago. I have documentation. It's a fully restored mid-century modern with documented architectural significance. It's been featured in Architectural Digest twice. I've turned down offers of $6. $2 million. The line went quiet. You're lying. I'm not. And you've just attempted to illegally sell a multi-million-dollar property for $200,000. I'm contacting law enforcement. You can't. I was helping you. You were stealing from me. There's a difference. I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing. Mom, Dad, and Tom. I declined all the calls and contacted my attorney. By 6 p.m. That evening, everything was in motion. The title company had been notified. The purchase agreement was voided. The buyer, who genuinely thought he was getting a tear-down lot, was furious when he learned the actual value. Tom's real estate agent friend was facing license suspension for facilitating what he should have recognized as a fraudulent transaction, and my attorney had filed a police report for attempted theft and fraud. My phone continued buzzing, the family group chat exploding with messages. I ignored all of it and focused on documenting everything for law enforcement. That night, I drove back to LA, arriving at the beach house around midnight. Ava had arranged for a locksmith to change all the locks and install a security system upgrade. As I stepped inside, the house was exactly as I'd left it, perfectly restored. The vintage lamps cast a warm glow across the original floors. The chairs were positioned to catch the ocean view, and the glass walls overlooked the private beach access worth millions by itself. This wasn't a shack, it was a documented masterpiece, and my sister had tried to sell it for $200,000. I slept in my own bed that night for the first time in weeks. Waking up to the sunrise over the Pacific, I made coffee in my restored vintage kitchen. At 9 a.m. My attorney called. Megan, the police want statements from everyone involved. Your sister is claiming she thought she had your permission. The buyer is threatening to sue everyone. And your sister apparently showed the buyer a different property interior. What do you mean? I asked. The buyer described a run-down house with water damage, broken fixtures, and structural issues. That's not what's in your property photos. She apparently took him through when it was dark, pointed out every flaw she could invent, and convinced him he was buying a tear down. So, she'd committed fraud against the buyer, too. At 11 a.m. Two detectives arrived at my house to take my statement. They walked through slowly, taking in every detail of the preserved architecture, the museum-quality furnishings, and the clear evidence of professional restoration. Ms. Thompson, this property is extraordinary. How did your sister think she could sell this for $200,000? One detective asked. She thought it was worthless. She saw it once 11 years ago before restoration and never came back. She assumed it was still a run-down shack. Didn't she see the interior when she brought the buyer through? The other detective inquired. According to my attorney, she brought him at dusk, used minimal lighting, and apparently lied about structural damage and code violations. The buyer thought he was buying a tear-down lot. She defrauded him as thoroughly as she tried to defraud me. The detectives documented everything, took photos, and reviewed my ownership documentation and appraisals. This is one of the more clear-cut fraud cases I've seen, one of them said. Attempted theft of a $5.8 million asset, fraudulent representation, forged authorization. She's looking at serious charges. After they left, I finally checked my family messages. There were 93 unread texts. Megan, you're overreacting. Megan, I was trying to help. Megan, you can't seriously press charges against your own sister. Megan, we're family. I composed a single response to the family group chat. I'll address this once. Lily attempted to sell my property worth $8 million for $200,000 without my knowledge or consent. She forged authorization documents. She defrauded a buyer by misrepresenting the property condition. These are felonies. The legal process will continue. Don't contact me again about this. Mom called immediately. I declined. She called again. I declined. Then I got a text from her. At least tell us why you lied about the house being worthless. I responded, I never said it was worthless. You assumed. You saw it once 11 years ago before restoration. You never visited again. Never asked about it. Never showed any interest in my life or career. You assumed I was struggling because that fit your narrative. I built a career, restored a property, and achieved significant success. You just never bothered to notice. Over the next week, the situation escalated. The buyer filed a civil suit against Lily and Tom's real estate agent friend for fraud. The real estate agent was suspended pending investigation. The title company flagged Tom's friend for multiple questionable transactions. The DA's office reviewed the case and decided to prosecute. Lily was charged with attempted grand theft, fraud, and forgery. Tom was investigated as a potential accomplice. My family's response was to blame me. Megan, you're sending your sister to prison. Family doesn't do this to family. Megan, I have 3 kids. How can you do this to them? We're going to lose everything because of your vindictiveness. My phone rang at odd hours. Unknown numbers, probably relatives calling to tell me I was wrong. I blocked them all. One voicemail got through before I blocked the number. It was from my aunt, Sarah. Megan, I don't know what's gotten into you. Lily made a mistake. Sure. But prosecuting her, making her lose everything. That's not the Megan I know. Used to be sweet. Now you're cold and vindictive. Maybe money changed you. Maybe that fancy house made you forget where you came from. But family is supposed to matter more than property. Think about what you're doing. I saved the voicemail and played it for my therapist the next week. What do you notice about the message? She asked. They think I'm the problem. They think I changed. Became cold. But I'm just responding to theft. Do you think you've changed? She inquired. I considered it. I think I stopped accepting their version of me. The struggling little sister. The one who makes bad decisions. The one who needs their help and pity. I never was that person, but they needed me to be. And now, they're confronted with reality, and they're angry at me for it. 3 weeks after Lily's text, I got a call from the prosecutor. Ms. Thompson, Lily's attorney is requesting a meeting. They want to discuss a potential resolution outside of criminal prosecution. Restitution, apology, admission of wrongdoing. In exchange, they're hoping you'll agree to request reduced charges. I thought about it. The evidence was solid, and we could prosecute successfully. But if I was interested in preserving any family relationship, a negotiated resolution might achieve justice while avoiding a trial. I set up the meeting. The meeting took place in my attorney's conference room. Lily, Tom, their attorney, my attorney, and the prosecutor were all present. Lily looked terrible, with dark circles under her eyes and her hair pulled back messily. Her attorney spoke first. My client deeply regrets her actions. She acknowledges that she made serious errors in judgment. She's prepared to offer a formal written apology and discuss restitution terms. Let's hear the apology, my attorney said. Lily's attorney nodded to her. Lily looked at me, her eyes red. Megan, I'm sorry. Thought I was helping. I know now that I wasn't. I was wrong to access your property, wrong to engage with a buyer, wrong to sign any documents. I violated your trust and your property rights. I'm sorry for the damage this has caused. It sounded rehearsed, but she'd said the words. And the restitution? My attorney asked. My client is prepared to pay $50,000 over 5 years as symbolic restitution. No, I said. Everyone looked at me. The actual damages exceed $50,000. Legal fees alone are over $30,000. The property was temporarily encumbered by a fraudulent claim which delayed a legitimate rental opportunity worth $15,000 monthly. The emotional distress, the violation of privacy, the attempted theft of a $5.8 million asset, $50,000 over 5 years is insulting. Lily's attorney shifted. Ms. Thompson, my client doesn't have significant liquid assets. The $50,000 represents a genuine financial hardship. She tried to sell my house for $200,000. If she'd succeeded in stealing it, she would have profited. Now she can pay the actual cost of her crime. What are you asking for? The prosecutor asked. I'd thought about this carefully, discussed it with my attorney and therapist. Full restitution of $150,000 for actual damages. Legal fees, lost rental income, security upgrades, and emotional distress. Payment schedule of $3,000 monthly until paid in full. Written admission of all criminal conduct. 5 years of probation with the condition that she has no contact with me or my property. Any violation of probation triggers immediate criminal prosecution with recommendation of maximum sentencing. Lily started crying. I don't have $3,000 a month. We have 3 kids, a mortgage. You have a boat, I said calmly. Sell it. You have a country club membership. Cancel it. You have car payments on luxury vehicles. Downgrade. You attempted to steal $5.8 million from me. You can figure out how to pay $150,000. Tom spoke for the first time. This is vindictive. You're destroying our family's future. You tried to destroy mine. You just didn't think I had a future worth destroying. The room went silent. Lily's attorney requested a recess to consult with his clients. They returned 40 minutes later and accepted the terms. Over the next 2 months, contracts were signed. Payments began. Lily and Tom sold their boat, which turned out to be worth $85,000. Tom took on overtime, and Lily got a part-time job. They canceled their country club membership, downsized one of their cars, and cut back on expenses. The $3,000 monthly payments started arriving on time every month. I didn't spend the money. I set up a trust fund for Lily's 3 kids. They'd get access when they turned 25. Maybe it would help them someday, but Lily and Tom didn't need to know that. 3 months after the resolution, I got a message from an unknown number. It was just a photo of my beach house taken from the public beach access, showing the stunning architecture, the pristine restoration, and the obvious luxury of the property. The message said, "Saw this in Architectural Digest. Finally understand what you built. I'm sorry we never saw you." It was from Dad. I didn't respond. A week later, a letter arrived. Handwritten from Mom. Megan, I've been thinking about what you said. That we never asked. That we assumed. You're right. We never visited after that first time. Never asked about your career, never showed interest in your life. We wrote the story we wanted, that you were struggling, and never questioned if it was true. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know I see now what we missed. And I'm sorry. I read the letter 3 times, folded it carefully, and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe not. The truth was I'd built a beautiful life, a career I loved, a home that was a work of art, financial security, professional respect, and peace. I didn't need my family's validation anymore. I'd proven something more important. I could preserve beautiful things. Architecture, integrity, self-worth, and some things once restored couldn't be diminished by anyone's assumptions. 6 months later, as I sat on my deck watching the sunset over the Pacific, the house glowing in the golden light, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ava. Just declined another purchase offer. $6. 8 million. Should I add them to the list? I smiled and typed back, add them to the list. This house isn't for sale. Not for $6. 8 million. Not for any amount. Some things you build aren't about money. They're about proving to yourself what you're capable of creating. And I'd created something extraordinary.